class. We kind of go back and forth on different days. One day will be proofreading, one day will be vocabulary, one day will be critical reading, analogies, and then combining sentences, because they don't know how to combine sentences other than a semicolon, and that's it. So we're trying to get from the combined sentences from two simples to one complex. So this is an example of the critical reading. Now, this is getting them to read critically, but this allows them to look for context clues, to just think about opposites, synonyms, all of the things that they need to do in vocabulary, but it's also just getting them to complete the blank and making sense of what's being said in the sentence. So this is an example of one that we do, and on this particular exercise, it gives them the instructions of this particular one that I've done with them. It says, now you've got to look for opposites. You've got to look for keywords that suggest that we're looking for the opposite of whatever it is they're saying in the sentence. So I'm going to walk you through as I would my class and have you participate in this. And this generally takes 5 or so minutes in class for them to answer and for us to explain and for them to explain their reasoning and go over it. So you want to look for keywords such as although, but, and however, these words that suggest that there's going to be a contrast in the sentence. So number one, if you will read that to yourselves, please, go through there and circle the words that we just suggested that would offer the fact that there's a contrast. And then we're going to try to pick the answer that makes the most sense with what they are trying to say about, in this number one, about DNA versus fingerprint. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to look at that. Does everyone have enough time to choose an answer for number one? Okay, so in number one, although fingerprinting is a good way to determine a person's identity, we now have even more accurate tests such as DNA matching. What is my clue word that we are talking about opposites? Although, okay? So we would want to circle although, that way that they know to look for that. Okay, what are we talking about as being something that is good? What's the good way to determine an identity? Fingerprinting, okay? And it is good, all right? Now, what is going to be a key word to show that this was a long time ago and now we're talking about modern? No. Now, okay? And what do we have now? Do we have good? We have more accurate. And what is the more accurate test? DNA testing. Okay. DNA matching. Now, we have to move on, because in the words that I gave you earlier, there was a word I left out that suggests contrast. And what word is that? Yet. Okay? Yet is another key word that suggests a contrast. So here they're showing us back to, what are they taking our minds back to? Fingerprinting, which was 100 years ago, was considered what? So we've got to choose from these 5 choices. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, all 5 of these words, they don't know. They don't know uncanny. They know idea of complex. Most of them will know inaccurate. And guess which one that they will pick? They're going to pick inaccurate, okay? But what's the problem with choosing inaccurate? Are we talking about accuracy? Is one better than the other? Is one more specific than the other? Yes, we are talking about accuracy. So why can I not choose C?
Because it doesn't show contrast. You're talking about the past.
Okay, the prefix in means that it is not accurate. So we're saying that 100 years ago, fingerprinting was considered nearly what? They thought that was the only thing that could determine a person's identity. So are they going to consider that only thing to be inaccurate? No, they're going to consider it to be accurate. So that's why we can't choose C, and that is the one that students will typically choose because it's the one that they know the best. Okay? So what answer do you think is the answer to suggest that fingerprinting is considered the same as DNA testing 100 years ago? Infallible. And then I always ask them, well, we already discussed in over here, so what does that mean over here? Not. And then what does fallible sound like? What word do you recognize in that? Fall or fail. And typically when you fall, are you doing it on purpose? And of course some kids said, yeah, no. Okay, it's a mistake. So if it's not a mistake, then that's what they're seeing as being, as fingerprinting is being accurate, the most accurate that they have. And then that helps them to walk through, helps them to discuss the words because they're going to go for the word they know. That's immediately the one they're going to use. And then I have to walk them through to make them think about breaking the words down. So on number 2, this one's a little bit simpler. Why? We have the contrast terms, but what else do we have in our sentences?
You talking about number 2?
Mm-hmm.
Hence, like country scenes?
Okay, we have country scenes. Now, whenever you see this, what does that tell me about that blank? It's the definition for that blank. So that narrows us down. And what 2 do you think they narrow it down to?
Pastoral and aesthetic.
Yes, they narrow it down to D and E almost every single time. Pastoral and aesthetic. Now, pastoral reminds them of what word, if they know anything? Pasture, okay? So then we have to determine the second blank. So here is our contrast word again. So over here we're talking about country. So over here, if we're saying but and we need the opposite, what's our other clue that we're talking about the opposite of country? Industrial revolution. Okay, so is realistic dealing with city or country or both? The country's real, right? So is the city. So they're both realistic. So am I showing an opposite to country by choosing E?
No.
No. Okay, very good. So what's my answer going to be? D. Because we have now discussed the meaning of what realistic. Realistic won't make sense in that second blank. So even if they think that the country is so pretty, it's aesthetic, which they don't know what aesthetic means, but it just sounds good, okay? But they do usually pick that one, and but then they don't think about that second blank, and you have to make both match, okay? And so we usually finish up with number 3 too, but I'm gonna go ahead and let Lacey get to her context clues. This is an example of how you can have them break it down, use highlighters, of course, and she's gonna show you how we do it in like a vocabulary lesson that specifically deals with context clues. So if you'll just flip over. We're not gonna do all of these. Every single one, right? You may need to zoom in a little, make it bigger. There you go. Is that better?
Okay, so whenever I assign any type of vocabulary, the first question I get is, can we use our phones to look it up? They always want to use their phone, and it's quick and it's easy, and that's great. But you want them to know that they can find the meaning of the word if they look at the sentence closely. So this sheet, most of the time they have not seen any of these definitions or words. And the instructions, we go just a little bit further for me to show them that you can actually define it on your own. The first thing that tells you to do is look over all of the definitions in column A, and I want you to actually do that. So just kind of scan them. You don't have to do anything. Just get familiar with what definitions you're going to be looking at. And in column B, you have sentences that use all of those words. You can see the terms in bold that you're going to be using. And each one of those sentences have at least one. A lot of them have more context clues that help them determine the meaning of the word. So, can I have someone read sentence A in column B for me? Kayla, thank you.
One speaker asserted that the best pay will get paid advantage to Alaska France. Another firmly declared that the best are all parents bank.
Okay, so I take kind of like what Betsy just did. I always model it for them first and say, all right, I'm looking at this sentence. I see that the word that I'm trying to find a definition for is asserted. And then I just go through my sentence and I highlight things that I think help me define what asserted means. So what would you highlight or underline? Firmly declared. And in that one, I think that's the best one. That's really the only one. But then after we do that, I say, okay, let's look over in column A and see if we can find anything that's similar. To firmly declare something or to state something.
Do you guys point out that they have noun, verb, adjective labeled, and you can
Yes.
point out what type of speech it is?
Yes. And then they'll look at that and say, okay, well, I know if they're trying to decide between two, they'll look at the part of speech and say it's a verb, so I know it can't be that.
They usually always do that to narrow it down, and if they don't, I suggest it to them, well, if it has an ED, that limits the part of speech, and so that really helps them to narrow it down if they're really having issues.
So in column A, where can you find that goes? Something that's the same as firmly declared. 15, to express or state positively, to defend. So then we go down to B, and sometimes I'll also ask them, when they see the word in bold, okay, where have you ever heard that, or what does it make you think of? And almost always they'll draw some type of connection. Like in this one, they'll say the Karate Kid, and they'll bring it up, and I'll say, okay, so who's the mentor, and what are they doing? And then they can always find it. So in that one, who will read sentence B?
I accept the opinion of my mentor who prefers the drawings of bison at Altamira. As an advisor, she has wise opinions and can be trusted.
Okay, so we know that that's her mentor. What else would you highlight for a good context clue? I would do advisor. Wise opinions.
Trusted.
Trusted. And then in column A, where can you find that?
Page 18.
Number 18. So this way they can see that they can define a word even if they don't have a cell phone or even if they don't have a computer, they can always do it. And I've noticed normally on the back of these sheets there are sentences with multiple choice words that they choose from, and I don't make them use context clues on that, but almost every one of them that turn it in, they have context clues highlighted and underlined because they're used to just looking at the sentence and automatically underlining those things. And then they can see that every time they can do it even if they can't look it up. You could do this really in any subject area. I mean, if you do vocabulary, which is almost everyone, let them look it up. They're used to doing it. They do it in English class, so they know that they can find clues within those sentences and see what the words mean. Any questions?